When I was a child, so not all that long ago, schools would play us this edutainment show called Look and Read, which was a series of multi-part stories, one of the most famous being Through the Dragon's Eye.
What did you say a quest was?
A search. A search for something very special and important.
Did you hear that? We're going on a...
Through the Dragon's Eye was absolutely tin pot. It was a children's BBC budget. The show's big scary villain Chan couldn't even be heard properly because he wouldn't stop moving, and the microphones were so cheap they picked up every scrape of his cheap plastic fabric cape.
So, Boris has found a beaton. Well, never mind. You'll shake hands with your old friend Charm, won't you, Boris?
Yet despite being a messy 1980s zero-budget children's production, Through the Dragon's Eye was still 100 times more epic, more professional, more put-together piece of entertainment than MindsEye.
North or south, east or west, the quest to save the life of Pelamar goes far. Look bravely through the dragon's eye and fly.
Okay, so I would have come prepared with a thoughtful retrospective video essay this week. I'd have loved to, but by the time I was done with various meetings and freelance assignments, I was left with just enough time to do the prep work I'd need to do for such an essay, and I played MindsEye instead. As I've had to hear after sex one too many times, I'm sorry, I thought at least one of us would have enjoyed it. I could have done anything with my time. I should have done anything else with my time. Instead, I played MindsEye. It's not all a wasted endeavour, I got a review out of it, but as I sit here saying these words on a Sunday afternoon with only a few hours before I'm officially way too late in handing the voiceover file to Z-Manzilla, I am left wondering to myself, should anyone have spent the past several days playing and reviewing MindsEye? I'll certainly give MindsEye one thing. It's a hell of a nostalgic ride. I'm not saying MindsEye is dated, but I was paranoid the whole time playing it, looking at my console expecting to see a red ring glowing in the darkness at any moment. Also, I'm saying MindsEye is dated. Like, it's really stunningly fucking dated. Having not one single gameplay idea that's evolved past the year 2009, playing MindsEye is like being transported back through time. When the Xbox 360 was on top, several dozen game companies were still alive, Dark Sector was taking the world by storm. Oh, Dark Sector. Now that is a real game. MindsEye is truly fascinating. Well, it's fascinating by the standards of a game with such little going on that it should not be capable of attracting fascination by any reasonable measure. On its surface, and let's face it, the surface is all MindsEye really has, the game isn't remarkable in any way, shape or form. Just another thoroughly mediocre open-world bland box with disposable gameplay and forgettable everything else. Yet despite this, MindsEye has captured public attention in a way most shitty games outside of the so-called AAA space never could. Make no mistake, in a couple of weeks, or a couple of days, or maybe in just a few hours, MindsEye will be completely forgotten, but there's been some extended allure to this thing, and there are a few reasons for this. It's not just the much-touted fact that a former Rockstar guy directed it, though of course that's something I do want to touch on later, as thoughts of Callisto Protocol enter my mind. It's also, and I really must emphasise this, it's not that the developer's co-CEO fucked the game's reputation over weeks before it even launched by claiming any negative reception was a conspiracy which he heavily implied was bankrolled by Rockstar Games. Seriously, that's not the only reason, though let's be honest, if you really did want to prove that not all publicity is good publicity, claiming a negative reception was a conspiracy implied to be bankrolled by Rockstar Games is one surefire way to do it. So I want to talk about the game itself, which is truly intriguing in the least intriguing way possible. For something so boring, so shallow, so comprehensively lacking as this, MindsEye's sheer dearth of features is truly remarkable. It's like the game is such a nothing that it's really quite something. You know a game's set up to win when, up to and including the day of launch, nobody seemed to know what kind of game it actually was. Through all of its flailing marketing, including a trailer that seriously had the cringy bloody gumption to use Mad World for a backing track. Builder Rocket Boy and IO Interactive did a pretty bad job of communicating how it played and what it did, which one can find understandable upon seeing just how little there is to say on the matter. So here for the record is what MindsEye is. It's a late 2000s style linear cover shooter placed in an open world map that you can't freely explore because again it's linear, which would be fine if MindsEye had been the level-based action game it obviously should have been. Instead, it's a level-based action game where you have to drive from level to level across a dreary empty desert using cars so slippery and bouncy they make the original Mass Effect Mako look positively fucking magnetized to the ground. In my review, I called MindsEye a flimsy imitation of Watch Dogs, and while it's a useful description for getting your imaginations in the right ballpark, it does grossly oversell what the game is, does, or bothers to attempt. Set in an alleged high-tech world where very little actually looks or sounds high-tech, you're a former soldier guy with one of the most 2000s-era action game protagonist names ever in Jacob, and you're working as a security guard for the dumbest tech company in the world. I can best describe the story by reading you something I wrote down 20 minutes after starting the game. It says it all. A multi-billion-dollar corporation has a vital asset stolen. They know who did it. They know the building he dropped it off at. Their response is not to send a security team there immediately to secure the asset and lie in wait. Instead, they watch with a remote drone, wait for the pickup crew to arrive, and then send one man in, who has to rush from headquarters all the way there while relying on the fact that the thieves can't just find it and immediately fuck off because it's dark out. You see, it's too dark for them to find the thing that their boy dropped. The multi-billion-dollar tech company's entire plan hinged on it being too dark to see. They hoped. Amazing. Dumb as the plot is, and it is so dumb, the gameplay is somehow worse. So like I said, this is a cover shooter. Cover shooter is not just the genre label, it's also a full list of contents. A rundown of everything available to you in the combat system. You can take cover, you can shoot. That's it. No, seriously, our incredible maverick super soldier Jacob can very literally only take cover and shoot. There's not, like, a grenade or anything. There are no abilities or skills. There is no melee attack at all. You cannot even fucking dodge. I shit you not. There are asset flips that let you do more than Jacob can do. Despite guns being all the player has, it's astounding just how fucking bad the guns look, sound, and feel. Squidgy is the only word I have for the sound effects. Weak, weightless, squidgy guns that come off more like plastic toys than firearms good enough to support gameplay. Almost 50% focused on the firing of guns. Well, you do also have a drone. Here is the drone. That was the drone. IO Interactive Summer Game Fest Showcase played 3 trailers in a row for this shit. MindsEye is, like I said, incredibly nostalgic for unintended reasons. The late 2000s is when I got into games media, easily the time where I was most involved with the game industry, before more recent times where I've been directly in it. As such, I have a deep fondness for the 7th console generation in all its embarrassing wondrousness. That time of studios desperately copying Call of Duty, awkwardly putting tits in their games because games could be quote-unquote mature now, and peddling the exact kind of guff MindsEye is. Intensely mediocre cover shooters, relying on a gimmick to stand out from Gears of War, but said gimmick is either so derivative or so shitty that it doesn't hide how subpar the whole sorry affair is. The only real fun I've had with MindsEye is remembering some of the all-time classic 7th gen guff. Dark Void, which gave Nathan Fillion a jetpack with which players could get truly disoriented. Damnation, a steampunk cowboy dealie that marketed itself heavily on its verticality, i.e. it did a lot of climbing in it, and of course the game most comparable, Mind Jack, which had a similar tech theme but did like 10 times more with it than MindsEye ever does, and let you hack NPCs to play as them. Sure, you were playing a very shitty shooting game no matter who you'd made your mind slave, but at least the aesthetic of the setting matched the setting of the setting, and the game made its gimmicks tangible. I suppose I should admit, you can hack NPCs in MindsEye too. Well, you can hack enemies. Well, you can hack the robot enemies that sometimes show up. Here's the entirety of the hacking function. That was the entirety of the hacking function. Yeah. Tonally, stylistically, structurally, MindsEye is firmly rooted in the 7th generation, and not as a fun throwback. It takes itself so seriously and presents its idea-bereft ideas so plainly that it clearly thinks it's a contemporary experience. It does this even as it presents you a simplistic, safe-cracking minigame with a straight face. Without so much as a nod to how dated it is, MindsEye seriously includes a tacked-on obligatory stealth section that was clearly shoehorned in because the existing mechanics aren't really suited for it. You know, the kind of thing that was in dozens of focus-tested games back in the day because they were seen as trendy and therefore mandatory. That shit hasn't been mandatory for, what, over 15 years now? Nobody made them put it in, but they did, because video games apparently stopped happening after, 2012 at the latest. These little snapshots of ancient trends, however, are dwarfed by the vast amounts of nothing the game otherwise offers. As well as a lack of combat mechanics, there's a distinct lack of anything resembling character progression, equipment, side content, any of it. It's telling, really, that the 7th gen ideas MindsEye copies are all the comparatively easy ones. Shitty minigames and stealth involving the pre-existing cover. No RPG elements, no loadouts, not even, money or shops. You know, stuff to do that would be in, say, I don't know, Grand Theft Auto. You know, since that series kept being brought up in conjunction with this one, maybe it's an unfair comparison, but I'm not the one that invited it. The game highlights its own emptiness with an absolutely baffling little habit it has, timing players on the drive between relevant locations. Early on, you start getting a timer which represents how long the game thinks it should take you to reach your next destination. You're encouraged to beat that time for no reason. I mean it. Literally zero reason, no rewards, no achievements. There's not even a single on-screen acknowledgement that you've done it if you do it. It's just there for the sheer sake of having something. Except it's not something, is it? It is quite specifically fucking nothing. At best, it's a microscope under which the fucking nothing has been slid. The question of what the fuck am I accomplishing here becomes even more apparent when you try the game's side content. Oh yeah, there's side content. I know I intimated there wasn't, but there is. Sort of, because despite taking place on an open world map, the side content is actually not part of the open world. No, at any time you can open up a menu of side quests, most of them obscenely lengthy checkpoint races, and you just do them. You do them as a completely segregated part of the experience, and you do them for no reason. Or you don't do them at all, because you don't have to do them, because there's no reason to do them. I would suggest you could just do them for fun, but, you know, it's fucking MindsEye, mate. Why? Why the fuck does an open world game have all its side missions relegated to a menu, at best only appearing in the world itself via a few JPEG-flavoured portals that can be safely ignored? Because, like I said, MindsEye isn't an open world game. It has an open world map, but the campaign taking place in it is beyond disinterested in open world gameplay. It is, in fact, actively hostile to it. If you deviate at any point from the mission you're on, you'll get a game over. If you take too long to reach your destination, even if there isn't a time limit, you'll get a game over. You're never not on a mission. There's no downtime. Nothing to do with the downtime even if you had it. Missions will supply you with a vehicle. That's the vehicle you will use, even if you can get out of it and into another one, which you sometimes can. The game will demand you get into the one it gave you. This game is utterly fucked up. Oh yeah, I didn't even mention, right, the guns, even though that's the only thing you've got with the combat system, ammo for them is incredibly limited. The only way you resupply bullets is from enemies dropping small amounts of ammo, tiny amounts. If you never use the assault rifle, you might get over 100 bullets for it at any given time. But guns will chew through the ammo so quickly that as soon as you start using the assault rifle, you're gonna have to swap. So a lot of the game is spent just using the dinky pea shooter pistol that they give you at the start. And that ain't much of a problem if you're just gritting your teeth and getting through the campaign, because the vast majority of enemies from beginning to end are just, like, regular guys, with nowhere near enough character models shared between them. And getting a headshot is really easy, so it's just point. Actually going is inaccurate. I don't want you to think the guns have better sound effects than they actually have. Why have guns be Jacob's entire combat capability and then tightly restrict the guns? Utterly fucked up. And why is it fucked up? Why is it such a self-loathing, unrewarding, feature-poor piece of shit? Well, it's largely due to the fact that the thing wasn't even supposed to be a game, or at least that seems to be the case. For as confused as everyone has been about what MindsEye actually was supposed to be, it seems few were as confused as the ones making and selling it. Originally, actually it might still be, but originally MindsEye was conceived as a concept, a proof of concept, intended to promote some open-world game creation software called Everywhere. This is why the menu of side quests is presented like a slate of user-generated content, which made no sense to me playing it on PS5 until I later learned that the PC version does come with a level editor. But it's all moot anyway because no servers have been up since launch, so nothing can be shared beyond what Build a Rocket Boy included. They were going to sell this thing within the freely distributed Everywhere. Then they were going to make it an episodic game instead. Oh yes, episodic. I guess they'd evolved past 2009 and gotten as sophisticated as 2014 with their game design by that point. But then it looks like that was thrown out the window sometime between 2023 and last week. Being not just a terribly designed game, but a fucking bug-riddled technical shit show, I don't think Everywhere's creation tools could have gotten a worse fucking advertisement. Jesus Christ, if they were still gonna try and use MindsEye to promote Everywhere, they couldn't have done a sillier job. And I'm going with the word silly because I don't want to be personally insulting. Really, I don't want to slag off Build a Rocket Boy, I don't want to slag off IO Interactive. I try to be a nicer person these days, no matter how insulted I am at having spent my own money on this bloody thing, but they used their own open-world game creation tools to make a game that punishes players for trying to have an open-world experience. They made a game that hates being set in an open world. You silly buggers.
You're taking some major steps toward developing your own clown identity.
And all of this has been made worse by using the involvement of former Grand Theft Auto developer Leslie Benzies to sell it, which only furthered the level of incoming scrutiny and amplified expectations that should not have been there. Name-dropping GTA so hard was a terrible mistake. Even if it were a significantly better and fuller game, MindsEye is nothing like GTA. Anybody going into this expecting anything close wouldn't just be disappointed by the letdown that is the game itself, they'd be eternally frustrated by an open world that was aggressively closed off. Just a frequent reminder that this game is not at all like the one its director was constantly associated with. If you're gonna hype up a GTA dev that much, either make sure the game would appeal to the interests of anybody excited by that idea, or make very, very sure your game doesn't mislead people into expecting such and then feeling utterly cheated. To do neither of those things, to make it look a bit GTA-ish, until players realised all too late just how antithetical to GTA's entire design philosophy it is, that's just fucking silly. No, I'm not going to call it silly. Let's call it what it is. It's stupid. It's a stupid way to sell a stupid game. Earlier I dropped that aside about how expecting a game like this to be reminiscent of GTA might be putting unfair expectations on it. And as I said, I'm not the one who invited those comparisons. Ah, yes, those thoughts of Callisto Protocol are flooding back again. Nestled in amongst some of my more damaging trauma flashbacks. Callisto Protocol, from the people what made Dead Space. Except Callisto Protocol is terrible, with a messed up combat system and the one button mashing jump scare replicated over and over again. You see, I'm starting to think that, as good for initial marketing as it might be, rattling off names and pedigree like this might not be all that good for the games being marketed. If nothing else, the abysmal train wreck that is MindsEye is a warning to customers not to get taken in by a developer's resume. Ultimately, someone's involvement with a game you like is not a sign that they alone were responsible for that game being good, especially a big budget AAA game with teams of dozens, often hundreds of people working on it. Even if they're talented creators who were instrumentally influential on that big game, nothing guarantees they have the support now they had back then, be it in the form of other talent, money, time, or any other number of the many, many factors that go into the making of a huge studio game beyond the ability of just one individual. And this is all crucially important if the game is independent, or in some other way lacks access to the resources of the games being name-dropped. If you want to big up a developer's pedigree, you need some way to measure the expectation that comes with that pedigree against the reality of the game being made. It can be done Sometimes, of course, it pays off. Itagaki was doubtlessly a big part of getting eyes on Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, and that game was such a damn good Castlevania successor that they stuck the landing. I'm a big proponent of naming talent and not just acting like a studio logo was responsible for making a game, so I'm not saying developers should hide their involvement. By the same token, I also have very little respect for the many self-styled auteurs in the game industry who carry themselves like their billion-dollar games were entirely their work. So I'm definitely not up for a game touting its director with nothing else to show for itself and letting a former association with another company's billion-dollar franchise do all the talking. I'd explain why, but I literally just got done describing MindsEye. So I didn't really touch on the whole accusations of conspiracy, and I think that just goes to show how bad MindsEye is, that part of the story isn't even really needed, and there are a lot more pertinent fuck-ups to talk about, because the game is so phenomenally wrong. Like, it's not just bad, it is a wrong project. That said, however, mate, what the fuck are you doing? Do not paint a target on your back like that. Game devs accusing negative coverage of being some bought-off conspiracy will only ever be seen as throwing an embarrassing tantrum, because that's what it is. IO Interactive had the right response to all of this when they said, yeah, well, the game should speak for itself, which it has. I shouldn't have to tell adults this. At best, you will predispose people to view your game sternly and uncharitably, and that's if it's good. Mate, your studio made MindsEye. Where did the hubris come from? If there's one thing I'll never understand, it's unearned hubris. Anyway, thank God for me.